Hi, and welcome to the Creativity and Innovation video workshop. This was planned as a webinar, but I don't know if you are part of the webinar or you get to see this otherwise. This is also ported in the Insights, the learning content management system that we have. Now, why creativity to innovation? There's a lot of conversation that happens in a lot of forums about creativity being linked to innovation, but nobody knows for sure whether there's a linkage. But still, I am risking this. I'm still trying to go ahead with this workshop and say that yes, I do believe to a certain extent that folks who are creative naturally and folks who also over a period of time become creative or tend to think in a different manner will definitely innovate in a much better manner than somebody else. So having said that, let's look at what you see over here. There's of course good old Dilbertt's there, and then there are some certain paintings which are there, which are very creative. Some of you might recognize them as pop stars, some of them but styled in a very old old school manner. Any which ways, so this could be creativity. Whether it is innovation, we do not know, because not many people might pay for these paintings, right? So what we are looking at is how to be creative and be commercially viable. So Dilbertt has a few basic questions. Why do we need to learn about creativity? What we need to learn about creativity and why we need to learn is just being a good painter or just being a good singer does not in any which way guarantee that I would go ahead and create a product or create a service which the customers would want and would pay me. Now, I could be an entrepreneur, I could be somebody working as part of an organization's creative team, I could also be an organization, but just being creative does not necessarily guarantee that. So that's one. But we do understand creativity so that we can focus our creativity in a certain direction. Now, what exactly is innovation? Is it tangible? Again, a very big gray area. Nobody really knows how to measure innovation. There's a lot of research available. I'm sure you can, Google is a friend of yours, as it is mine. I borrowed that from one of my ex-CEOs. So you can go ahead and Google it and see. Nobody necessarily has got the perfect formula for measuring innovation, of saying that whether a particular idea is innovative enough, whether it will get you certain, let's say, benefits which are desired by you when the idea goes to the market. Nobody has that formula, and it is not easy to create such a formula, because innovation by definition itself is something that you have gone and done which was not done earlier in the same manner. There could be a cycle which is existing in today's date with maybe 10 gears. Tomorrow I come up with a cycle with 6 gears, but I still end up achieving the same effect. So that is again innovation. So innovation does not necessarily mean something that was not existing at all and you've gone ahead and created that, right? That would probably be God's work, because all human creation is inspired by something or the other. Anyways, we'll come to all of that. Can it be measured? Yes, innovation can be measured in a certain way, but you cannot necessarily pinpoint and say this is the result of innovation itself. There could be other factors which would be affecting those measures, and we'll get to see that. Okay, can you touch innovation? Well, if you can touch innovation and if you can feel it or if you can sense it, of course, that is something which is desirable. But in certain aspects, folks are innovating, and there are things which are very innovative in the world which you obviously can't touch and feel. We'll see some of those also. Yes, of course, you have to experience it and sense it in some manner. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that it exists. Okay. So, let's say we look at the learning agenda. Now, lateral thinking. I put this right on top. There's a reason behind it. Most of you would be expecting this to be here. That's the reason I'm going to do this. Otherwise, there's a lot of research in today's date which says that lateral thinking not necessarily will lead to innovation. So Mr. De Bono and rest of the folks who've been kind of propounding lateral thinking may or may not have been right. We really can't say. Collaborative creativity, of course, without any doubt, this is extremely important and definitely relevant, and I presume would remain relevant for a long time to come. Then we would, of course, do a simulation on something I call creative thinking. So not necessarily lateral thinking, but put a lot of such methodologies together like lateral thinking and get into a thinking mode which is collaborative and say, okay, this is creative thinking, not necessarily just lateral thinking. Okay. Then let's look at a project. There'll be a project team. They'll have to create something innovative, and we'll do that during the phase of this workshop itself. And we will use a very simple tool which is mind mapping. Now, mind map in today's date, and for folks who are really interested in learning, there are a lot of consultants out there who can give you wonderful sessions on mind mapping. I'll show you very basic things over here. I'm not necessarily an expert on that. Okay, so lateral thinking for product development, lateral thinking for service offerings, or say creative thinking for both of these, and simulations which involve SWOT analysis, and of course dreaming the future. Now that this I've picked up from a few things in Agile and Triz. So wherever I'm referring to any of these copyrighted models, whether it is Six Sigma, whether it is Agile, whether it is Triz, or it's any of these change models which are quite famous in the market and quite effective also, let me tell you, I will let you know, and I also make references to those on my website so I don't get into copyright issues. Okay, now let's look at a dummy project. Now let's presume we were to do this workshop in a face-to-face scenario wherein there were about say 20 to 30 participants in the room. We would get into groups of 4 to 5 participants and choose a dummy project. Now that dummy project can be absolutely anything. It can be you feel that in your office the time tracking is not being done well, so it can be a very, very simple time tracking application that you want to create, or some method or some offline process that you want to create. Or it can be something as complex as creating a learning management application, or creating a learning management platform, or maybe a leave application. So because I mostly have served with the IT industry, so I keep giving these application examples. Besides that, absolutely anything that you want to take up as a project. Let's say you want to plan a picnic, a very simple picnic to be planned to say from going from Delhi to Jaipur, and that is what your project is. So what I would love for you to do is you allocate the tasks. Firstly, you understand what are the strengths of your team members and what they bring on board, so you have a little discussion. Then you allocate the tasks to them. Then you also break them up into subtasks or sub-projects or sub-modules, or whatever it is that you want to call them. So this is a planning phase initially that you will have to get into. Once the planning phase is done, by the end of it, I would love to see all of you have written down maybe at least 6 to 7 points which you yourself contributed to the planning phase. So each and every person in your team, whether that person be responsible for execution or just for say delivery of the plan, initially I would really love for all of them to get involved into planning right from the beginning to the end. So let's say a person in your team, and say a junior participant of the workshop, presumes that they are not aware about application development. So what you need to suggest to them is, okay, fine, say you are the end user of an application, a time tracking system. How would you want your time to be tracked? What all inputs do you require so that the time tracking system speaks to you in a certain language which you understand? Or say there is a register kept over there wherein in that register you maintain your entry and your exits, and whenever you look at that particular register, it is very clearly signed by somebody in legible handwriting, so it's kind of validated. There are no security issues. Nobody can say no, this signature is not mine or something like that. Or you would rather have an application, an online application which everybody in the organization trusts. So even if you are speaking with a team member who does not necessarily know anything about application development, immediately that person, that lady or that gentleman would love to say, yes, I would love to have something which does not leave out many loopholes. So within the planning phase itself, you have got somebody in your team involved who had no linkage to anything of this sort earlier. You have also gathered a VOC, voice of the customer. So you have requested one of your team members to become a customer, and then you write down all these things. Now when I say brain writing, the reason I'm being very pushy about writing this down is that brainstorming doesn't necessarily work. Let's presume in your team you're a senior person with say about 16 to 17 years of experience, and there are a couple of folks who have just joined recently. They may feel comfortable or they may not feel comfortable expressing their thoughts in front of you. Let's also presume that the communication, the very basic verbal communication levels within your team vary, and maybe it's a new team, you just haven't settled down yet and you still haven't kind of gelled together. So if folks write down, they also overcome those communication barriers. The third thing, and which is the most important thing, is that while you are conversing, your brain might not necessarily be there in the here and the now. So that is something related to human psychology and learning, in which they say that the presence of the mind in the here and the now, in the present moment, is very much required for you to be effective, for you to be able to deliver at your highest potential. So brain writing will ensure that. Let's next look at the design phase. Now design phase is basically about thought association. All of you have written down your thoughts. There's an entire plan in each and every person's mind. How do you now relate those thoughts? What do you pick? What you don't pick? So that comes in the design phase. Thought association within this context of this particular presentation or workshop is also related to how do you get creative thoughts. How do you basically go ahead and excite your mind to think in a certain direction? Not randomly just excite your mind to think all over, but think in a certain direction. How do you motivate your own self?